Good morning, good morning, good morning, all over the world. I hope you're doing well this morning. Um, I want to discuss today my book again. Uh, Thank You, Mrs.G. You will find it on the website, Amazon, and the other house websites. So I hope you had a good week. And this morning, um, in fact, yesterday I was really having, trying to think about whether I felt like I was, hitting a brick wall. Uh, and I really, I know what I am talking about when I talk about mindsets because I see it all the time when I have discussions with people on Facebook. I see how they look up to the white man, how it's a matter of urgency, and I feel it. But I get very disheartened when I see that people don't see what I'm saying. But it's so good because uh, God always has a way of awakening you. So last night, as I was thinking, yesterday, my son went to, he's a musician, he went to record something. So when he went to the studio, the producer was an English guy, and he was asking him, where were you? Oh, you were born, your parents were born in Africa and you come here. And he said yes. And then he said, well, isn't it strange that, you came to England? Sorry, I don't know exactly what he said, but it's something like that. And he was like, oh, my son was like, oh yeah, because, people always go to their abuser, battered women syndrome. And this guy, my son said this guy looked like he had an awakening, you know, because young British people, you have to know that the history of colonization is not really taught to them that much in schools. So most of them are wondering why you are here. They look at you as, colonization was something that was good, and why are you here? So he went on. Then this guy went on to tell my son that um, he met a Zimbabwean guy, and I was saying, oh my goodness, met a Zimbabwean guy who actually was racist, and my son was looking at him thinking racist as in a white person. He says, no, he's black, but he was racist against his own people, and right there was my key to say this message really does need to be preached. And I say preach in quotes. This is a white guy who's looking at a black person who's really denigrating and putting down his own race. And it's a mindset. And it's a painful one. Because when you think of yourself, that in itself is internalized oppression. So internalized oppression is looking at the people who are your own group, your own race, and judging them based on these values that were drained into you by the oppressor, were sort of, brainwashed into you. So he's hating his own race, and he's telling the race that oppressed him that they're better. So he's really singing the right tune. He's really just like he's a young man who did not live maybe in colonized Zimbabwe, right, Rhodesia, but still has the mindset that was drummed into him for his parents and his ancestors to be colonized. Now answers the question when people say to me, colonization is gone. It is gone on paper, but it is very much still alive in our heart, in our minds. And I did say, we mentioned about how Christianity, and I would say Christianity in quotes, was actually included, was, included in this agenda of colonizing us. And it is contaminated Christianity. And I will go as far as calling it a demon. I said that last week. Because that Christianity that segregates, that looks at another human being less, is not Christianity, because Christianity, it is in itself, is Christ, who is God incarnate, coming down here on earth and becoming like one of us. So if there ever was heresy, that is it. Because anybody, if Christ can be just the same and walk on earth and go through everything, pain and everything, that means anybody who is preaching Christianity should do the same. And of course, we know they didn't. And David Livingstone, who came to Zimbabwe, to Rhodesia, they had a plan and constructed a plan where they said the 3 C's which they had to follow. Okay? So the 3 C's were Christianity, commerce, and the Christianity, commerce, and civilization. Sorry, I forgot that important part. And he was a missionary. He was a vicar's son. And he came to, he said he wanted to civilize us. There's nowhere in the Bible where any of the disciples was sent to civilize people, to change their culture. I said that last week. So we know that it's a demonic, it's a satanic agenda that wraps itself up as Christianity. We know that now. So that Christianity, and by the way, David Livingstone said he came as a missionary, and apparently there's only one recorded person that he converted, who was a chief. But he's known to have always wanted to expand the British Empire. That was his main agenda. And he obviously used Christianity. That was hypocritical, and we know. But you tell me, after I tell you about the fact that there's a young man who was saying he hates, then it gives us, I feel a sense of urgency. Because if these young people are the ones, the future of Zimbabwe, and they are refusing to accept who they are, and by the way, that kind of person exists in a lot of other. I go on TikTok and I see some young people who say, "I hate blacks and I don't want to be part of black people." It's saddening. And then I go over to listen to young African Americans who are so confident of who they are. And these are people who came from the lowest, the slavery. And so just to carry on, David Livingstone, of course, spread the Christianity, which really is false Christianity. It's not Christianity. You have to know that now. And of course, we know that The church was split. So many 15, 17, I don't know, somewhere around there. When Martin Luther became the Protestant, and then they broke away from the Catholic. And of course, the Protestants were the British who colonized my part of Africa. And now there is the Commonwealth, which really is a continuation of the British Empire. And this was in a paper in The Guardian. So we cannot, in this time of social media, it is actually a crime to be uninformed, especially if you're a young person. You need to find out who you are. You will not, of course, when you Google, you'll find a lot of false information, but you need to dig deeper to search. So this paper actually says the Commonwealth is the continuation of the British Empire. And I can believe that. Because, of course, I will show you a picture of of the emblem of the Commonwealth. This is it right there. And you can see the angel, the St. Michael, the angel, has his foot, or you can say his knee, on a black man. This is what we have sworn allegiance to be under the white man. And this is talking about angels. So when he's talking about angels, this is the belief in the church itself. So we know that kind of thinking has not changed. We know that. And we know that even today, there are people who still believe that. You cannot swear allegiance to something like this. All those common countries that are in the Commonwealth in Africa, and believe that you will ever rise above the white man. It's not going to happen. And it is saddening that there are countries that actually believe that. They love to be in the Commonwealth. By the way, the Commonwealth, the British Empire still owns land that is 4 times the size of England. And they control 1 trillion worth of the key resources in Africa. So can you see now that the Christianity that we got, that is oppressive, you see there still in Africa? Because you see churches where there are pastors who own so much. I'm not trying to get there, and own so much. And the little people are giving. I was surprised, actually, myself, a few months ago. I went to see my son, and my pastor gifted me with a very expensive gift. My 2 pastors. I wasn't used to that, because throughout my life, I've had to look for an expensive gift to give to a pastor. But you see, that mindset, I was so happy when I realized what has just happened. So that mindset of that kind of church, and we look at it and say, oh, we blame all the past, all those pastors, all that is the Christianity they received from the people that colonized us. The Christianity that says, I am above you. If I bring you Christ, then I'm above you. Of course, there is a hierarchy in every church. Of course, there's a hierarchy everywhere. The disciples looked up to Jesus. But there is a certain amount of looking down on other people that we got from colonization, that we got from that Christianity that is, contaminated and almost demonic. So every area of our lives, I grew up in a church where everybody were in a black church in Africa. But our superintendent, the top man, was a white man. And that is everywhere we go. And of course, it is very hard for you to start of thinking of yourself at the top. But you cannot belong to Christ, who came down as, God incarnate and came and lived with people. That is what the kind of Christianity that we call authentic Christianity. Anything else outside of that is not Christianity. That colonization is really, they call the 3 C's they brought. That Christianity they brought was not Christianity, because there's nowhere in the Bible, because they say 3 C's civilized. There's no in the Bible where disciples were sent to go and civilize a people. So we know all those things that we know all that is contaminated and satanic. It is all greed. So, as I said, we have to be aware that being Christian is knowing who you are and believing that you are able to attain anything you put your mind to, because you have God living in you. And anybody who tells you there's a ceiling where a certain race is supposed to sit is preaching heresy. So next week I'll be going into IQ and how they came up with these IQs, which at the end of the day, in fact, it's a topic that really infuriates me, because when I look at what the people that call themselves of high IQ, I don't see anything that is pro-humanity. I don't see it. So that's what I'll be touching on next week, because it's in one of my chapters. But I'm just trying to explain to you why you think the way you think, why you look at Africa and hate Africa. Africa still has the mindset. Those who are at the top have just taken over. They just have the mindset. They've looked themselves as whites, and they are just oppressive. It is the same. A mindset is a very, very difficult thing to deal with. It has to be something that you do consciously. I'll go into epigenetics in one of my chapters where they found out that your environment or what you go through can actually alter your genes. It doesn't change the genes, but it alters them. So what it means that, and it explains a lot about why then we think the same way that our parents thought, even though, we are supposed to be free. So that mentality, that thought that came to us. And I'll go as well into Samuel Morton, a man who wrote a book called, Crania Americana, which actually was supposed to prove that a black man's brain, is smaller. This man did that in, I think it's in 1839. He was trying, at that time, the abolitionists were really pushing hard for slavery to be abolished. And he was trying to prove that we have a smaller brain and therefore we should be, kept where we are. And of course, there's the Darwin, the social Darwinism, where they talk about the development of races, and we apparently right at the bottom there. So all these things came in, and they actually were trying to justify their kind of Christianity. And all those things fall on your head in this generation. You don't just come and just leave. They fall on your head because it was a weight that was carried by your fathers. And you're going to carry that weight until you realize that you don't have to carry it. And that it was all false. It was all lies. And it worked back then, and it's still working now, that machine. But we have to now start thinking different. We have to teach our children different. We have to teach them that they can. There's something actually, before I go. I've heard people say to their children, and I used to believe it too, in this world, you're black, you have to work 10 times more than a white person. That's saying to your child, for every unit that they work, a unit a white man works, they have to work 10 times? No. Let's stop telling our children that. Let's tell them they need to change the way they look at themselves. They need to change the way they look at themselves. Because you can work harder. They can work 10 times harder and still not get. For as long as they don't look at themselves as equals, they will always work hard and think, I have to work 10 times. I know this sounds very good. And a lot of people say, I told my child, and everybody claps their hands. No. Tell your child you can achieve anything you put your mind to. Even though I didn't achieve it, but you can. And that's how we broaden our horizons and become like everybody else and achieve like everybody else, because mindset is a huge thing. Oh, thank you very much. I am glad I did this thing. I was very kind of reluctant today, but thank God I did it. And I hope you took away something from everything I said today. So again, my book is Thank You Mrs.G, and it is on the house website. My son is still working on the website. He didn't like the one that my publishers did, and it will be up and running soon, and I'll let you know. So I hope you have a brilliant week, and I hope what I've said today, you put it into practice, sit down and think about it and make yourself aware of who you are, because you're wonderfully, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Thank you so much.